CD. Yeah, so here it is, okay? And what's cool about this site, it's xkcd.com, is you get lots of examples of stick figure comics, and if I just click on random, I'll get a random comic, excuse me. So I'll click on another one, right? And as you can see, like, they're stick figures, but they're actually done with a lot of care. Well, that one's pretty sophisticated. So my point is, you just create the best comic that you can. So that means if it's stick figures, that's fine, but there should be a lot of care put into like how things are. I don't know, like how you're drawing the panels, how you're working with lettering, what the story is communicating, that kind of stuff. And actually, that applies to just about any of these forms. I lost my final project option sheet. Okay, let's bring it up again. But it applies to any of the formats that you choose. I just want you to do the best job you can and produce the most professional looking PSA that you can. On the other hand, you know, I'm not Steven Spielberg, so I'm not going to be watching your film from that sort of perspective. I'm not a judge on The Voice. I'm not Adam Levine, so I'm not going to be listening to your song in that kind of way. I'm not an artist, so I won't be judging your artistic skills, but I will be looking for the most professional piece that you can put together. So there have been times where people have hand-drawn comics and it looks kind of sloppy. It looks like the sort of thing that I could put together in, you know, under an hour. Or I've already commented on people just turn on their laptop camera, record for a minute, and then call that a video PSA. So I'm looking more for the professionalism and also the message. Let's not forget about that. Like, I want to see your topic delivered to a specific audience in a somewhat meaningful way. And if you haven't noticed already, the activity board also has student examples. So I think it's in the week 4 stuff. But you have PSA examples that you can check out so you can see what other students have done. It would be cool to look at them even in this session, but unfortunately I can't have sound work during these sessions. So that's kind of what I'm looking for. Okay, and finally, most people can find that they'll fit one of these topics: the film, the podcast, the comic, the game, the song. If you have a different kind of idea and want to pitch me that idea, that's okay too. Some people want to, for example, I've had people create websites. I've had people create infographics, which are a unique combination of image and text in order to teach or illustrate or inform. Actually, this final project options PDF is kind of functioning as an infographic. Maybe not as strongly as a typical infographic would, but it's sort of doing that. I think you had an infographic that you looked at earlier in the month also, that was uploaded as an asset. Sarah says, if we use a picture, do we have to cite them? If so, how and where? Yeah, you will. And I think someone else asked a question about music and samples. Yeah, all that stuff will have to be cited. And I'm going to get to that in just a second. You can read through the rest of the final project option sheet on your own. They're just reminders like Full Sail's PG-13 guidelines, so we're not going to be using profanity, racial slurs, anything ugly in our PSAs. Plus, how appropriate would that be when you're trying to persuade an audience to do something and it's filled with curse words or ugly assumptions or anything like that. And reminders that, yeah, you can only use images, video, audio, and music that belong to you or that are royalty-free and licensed for commercial use. And I'll talk more about that in a second. But yeah, that's important. No copyrighted work can appear in any of your projects. So as much as I love that new Taylor Swift song, Shake It Off, I don't want to hear that in your video or your audio podcast in the background. As much as I love that Meghan Trainor song, I don't want to hear that in your projects, right? And I'm not joking. I really do get this. I get people who've used Rihanna. I've had people. I mean, no copyrighted material. Will these artists really come down on you for using it? No, probably not. They'll never know. But here at Full Sail, since so many of you are heading into career fields where like this stuff is going to be an issue, if you're heading into music or film or gaming or graphic design, etc., like this whole thing about appropriation of others' work is kind of important. So we set the standard pretty firmly and pretty early here at Full Sail. So yeah, no copyrighted stuff. Quiz question number 2. What format will you use? Okay, so I just listed like 5 of them. What format are you going to use for your final project, your PSA project? Okay, so just tell me what you're thinking of. Some of you already answered in the session, but you'll just answer it again in the quiz. Okay, so I'm looking for a pretty simple answer here. Like, are you going to do the video, the film, the audio, the comic, etc.? Just a quick reminder, those fancy Greek words we learned about in week 1. Remember, I said I don't care if you actually remember the words or not, but you should remember the gist of what they mean, that we can appeal to people using emotion, using logic, by establishing credibility or appealing to authority. Keep those in mind because they can play a role in your PSA. Here's quiz question number 3. How will your chosen format appeal to your target audience? And I want like specific answers here. Like I don't want to just hear, oh, everybody loves videos, so that's why I'm creating a video. Or I'm really good at singing, so that's why I'm going to do a song. No, I want you to actually kind of think through what your comic, what your song, what your podcast, what your film will need to do in order to reach people. Okay? I mean, maybe you don't have everything figured out, but you should be thinking through some of these things. Also, it's a way to check that you're choosing the best format possible. Sometimes people sort of choose a format early and stick to it, and then they realize at the end, wow, maybe that wasn't the best format to use. Maybe I shouldn't have created a film. Maybe I should have gone with a comic. Or some people choose a comic, and it would have been much better as, I don't know, a podcast or something. Okay? So I want you to think through how your chosen format can reach your audience and what specifically you'll do to try to make that happen. Okay, this gets into issues that Doran and somebody else brought up. Creative sources that you can use. Here are a bunch of them. Compfight.com. This is a great place to go for images. Okay, do I still have... I must have closed that one. Okay, so here's compfight.com. If you're looking for images, I'm going to almost require that you go to compfight.com. The other option is to use the AP Images database in the Full Sail library. You probably learned about this when you took DGL because there's an assignment there where you have to use the AP Images database. But Compfight is another great tool. It's a Flickr search tool, but the reason I insist you use Compfight is because all your results here will be allowable. So if I do a search for, like, for example, puppies, I'll get a bunch of results. First of all, anything above this dotted line, don't use, because this is actually a plug for another site where you actually have to pay for this stuff, and you shouldn't have to pay for anything. But anything below the dotted line, you can use. Just make sure that you have commercial clicked over to the left here. Technically, you can click on Creative Commons too. It's a little bit difficult to explain, but because Full Sail is a for-profit university, technically we should be clicking on commercial. It just means that these photos are allowed to be used in commercial projects. Excuse me. So I'll just click on this little guy here. Okay, and then you can see, like, I have my size options for the image. Next week, because I don't want to overwhelm you in this session, but next week we'll talk about how to specifically cite music and images in APA style. But since you already got a ton of APA last week, and this session also has a lot of information, I'm not going to overwhelm you with that right now. But next week I'll show you how we can actually go in here, get the URL, use that URL to get basic information about this photo and who took it, so we can include that information in our citation. Basically, for whatever image we're trying to find, we're always looking for some rights reserved. Okay, anything that's all rights reserved, we can't use because that's technically a copyright issue. Some rights reserved basically means it's allowed to be used if you give credit for it. Okay, so there's that image thing. If we go to the Full Sail library, there's also a cool tool that you can use for music. And this isn't just for people who are creating songs, by the way. If you need background music for your video or your podcast, you can go here as well. It's called Westar Music. It gives you the information down here about what you need to type in. You have a password. This is awesome because a lot of these sound files cost between $30 and $60 typically, but as a Full Sail student, you get them for free. And you can see they're put into different categories. So if I just click on one of them, like rock, action, and emotion, they always have these generic corporate sounding names like rock, action, and emotion. You can see here are the tracks. So here's one called Letting Loose, etc. So you can listen to them, try them out. Gives you the length, etc. I haven't tried this out too much myself, but I've heard from other students. You just have to go through the checkout process, like you're actually purchasing it, but you won't be charged anything because you're a student. But then you download the file, and then you can use the file in your project. Okay, so Westar Music. That's a good thing to use. Defont.com is a place if you're interested in fonts. Most of you probably have programs, though, that have plenty of fonts on them. I mean, even basic things like Microsoft Word have a variety of fonts. But be aware that like even things like font choice are kind of important. You know, seeing Times New Roman in I don't know, as part of your video PSA just isn't very interesting. On the other hand, you could choose a font that's completely inappropriate, like it might look cute on the page, but it doesn't fit the tone of your PSA. So fonts are important things to keep in mind. If you're interested in using online animation tools, there's bitstrips.com. There's Powtoon. Most people have heard of Powtoon. Are people here familiar with that? It's a really fun tool. It's technically presentation software, meaning it's really kind of closer in spirit to like something like PowerPoint or Keynote. It's just that it looks nothing like PowerPoint or Keynote because it literally uses simple animations so that there's movement on the screen. The cool thing about this is that because it doesn't look like a presentation, it can actually double really nicely for a sort of video animated piece. So Powtoon is really fun. GoAnimate.com is another animation tool. It's a little bit it's awesome too. I think it limits you to only 30 seconds though if you're a free user. I've had students put together just a number of 30-second clips in order to create a 2-minute PSA, which means there's some awkward pauses, but okay, GoAnimate's another tool that you can use. Final quiz question. What tools and technologies will you use to complete your final project? And again, I want you to be fairly specific here. Don't just write Powtoon. Don't just say my laptop camera. Like I want to know like every tool you're going to use, even if it's something simple like Microsoft Word to begin the drafting process. Or if you're going to hand draw comics, explain to me that you'll begin by hand drawing it and then scanning it and then uploading it to, I don't know, Adobe Photoshop or Adobe Illustrator. Tell me what specific tools you're going to use. If you're going to create a podcast, what are you going to use? If you have a Mac, you could use a tool like GarageBand. You could even use something as simple as QuickTime. If you're a PC user, there are common tools out there like Audacity, which is a free tool, free software program you can use that deals with audio editing. So tell me like what tools and technologies you're going to use to complete your final project. But I don't think anybody mentioned that they're going to do the audio podcast here. I think everybody mentioned a comic, video. But either way, for the audio or the video, like anything that includes voiceover, remember that we have like there are ways to carefully edit things. So sometimes I'll get projects. I mean, I don't take off points if someone stumbles for 1 second or I don't know, makes a tiny mistake. But sometimes I hear audio podcasts or even videos where there are lots of errors, and you can clean that up just using editing tools. If you're sophisticated enough, you know how to correct those on the fly right there and then. Deleting it, erasing it, replacing it, and covering your tracks within the overall piece. If not, you can even do like a dumb man's or a dumb lady's version of editing, which is just to record your pieces, like, I don't know, in 20-second chunks. making sure that they're okay and that they sound the way that you want, and then putting them all together. So do try to. That's part of the professionalism. Try to make sure that they're the most polished pieces you can. Because yeah, sometimes I hear people who stumble too much, or they're speaking a bit too fast, or the energy level just is. I'm not saying you have to be like a professional voiceover person, but I don't know. People are talking much the same way that they talk in everyday conversation, so maybe they're not enunciating. Maybe they're so that affects the message, right? So be aware of these typical things like editing, like making sure that your voice is coming across the way that you want it, and so on. Um, yeah, John, I think you mentioned in a private message to me you were looking at a website. Yeah, that's fine. We can talk more about that in by bouncing messages back and forth. But yeah, website is an appropriate pitch idea. I think that might be. Yeah, and as I mentioned, well, you always give credit, and we'll get into this next week, okay? Because you actually have to cite whatever you use. Whatever you use. I mean, you don't have to cite that you used Microsoft Word, or if there are particular sound files within the program that you're using. Like GarageBand comes with preloaded sounds. iMovie comes with some preload. You don't have to cite that. But anything you sort of get extra from just out there, like an image, a sound file, you have to give full credit. And we'll get into how to do that next week. Oh, ignore that. There are only 4 questions. I used to ask a 5th question, but forget that. Okay, question time. Any questions at all about peer review, about the final project, the public service announcement? I mean, you'll have a lot of time to sort of send me messages or questions if you want, but if there are any burning questions that you have right now, now is a good time to ask them. Okay, no questions. Are we all good then? Dorn says how to go about citing a song that you may use in a song. I'm not sure what that means. We might have to talk offline. I mean, Dorn, I guess. I mean, yeah, you'll only be able to use things like I mentioned, like music samples from like Westar Music, or if you have another source that you're thinking of, you'll have to give me a link so I can check it out. But we can't. We're not doing what like other songwriters do, where we take. I'm trying to think of a famous song off the radio right now. What's that song with Jessie J and Ariana Grande and Nicki Minaj? Boom. Like you can't take a section of that song and use it in your song. Okay. Bang Bang. Yeah. I'm confusing with Boom Clap, that other song that's on the radio right now. I love both of those. I get so confused because one's called Bang Bang, the other one's called Boom Clap, and it's like, what are the chances of that? 2 songs that kind of echo the same thing. Okay, Doran says you're talking about public domain. Yeah, just give me some more information about like what song you would be taking from public domain, because I just have to check it through and make sure that it's okay. And then, yeah, hopefully next week's session will answer the questions on how to cite that. Because even if it does come from an allowable source, it still needs to be cited. Let's see, I think someone else had a question. Is the written part for the final project... someone... Is the written part of the final project due to you next Tuesday for approval? No. I don't know if you mean written part like the lyrics or the script or anything. No, I don't need that next Tuesday. Is there something on one of the assignment sheets that says that? Because sometimes I have errors, or there's sometimes things that I've eliminated in one version of the assignment to another. It would be nice. Again, your quiz question is going to tell me what format you're going to work with for the final. And that's what I'm most interested in. Obviously, if you want to show me anything that you're working on, either a draft or a script or something like that, that's fine. But no, there's no official like assignment that says you have to show me. Okay, any other questions? If not, I'll hang out here for a little bit. But if you're good to go, you're free to enjoy the rest of your evening. Okay. Thanks so much for attending, and I'm going to stop the recording right now.